In the depths of space, where civilizations rise and fall like cosmic dust, there exists a truth that chills the blood of even the mightiest galactic empires. Never underestimate a species that named their planet after dirt, yet somehow learned to touch the stars. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds. Their fleets darkened the void between galaxies. Their weapons could crack planets like eggshells. For millennia, they believed themselves the apex predators of the universe. Until they met humanity. Not in glorious battle, not in desperate last stands, but in the quiet neutrality of a small, unremarkable blue world orbiting an average yellow star. The humans asked for nothing, threatened no one, and seemed content to tend their gardens while the galaxy burned around them. But General Vexstar had seen what lurked beneath that peaceful facade. He had witnessed the sleeping giant that the Empire was so eager to awaken. And, now, standing before the Imperial Council, he carried a message that would either save his civilization or damn them all, leave the humans alone, or we all burn. This is the story of how a warning became prophecy, and how the most dangerous species in the galaxy earned that title not through conquest, but through restraint. The command bridge of the Zephyrian dreadnought Eternal Dominion hummed with the quiet efficiency of a war machine that had never known defeat. General Vexstar, his scaled hands clasped behind his back, stared at the blue marble suspended in the viewscreen before him. Earth. Such an insignificant name for a world that would soon learn the meaning of Zephyrian superiority. Scan results, Commander Zethka? Vexstar's voice carried the authority of someone who had personally overseen the subjugation of 47 worlds. The younger officer, his purple skin marked with the ceremonial battle scars of the Zephyrian military elite, consulted his holographic display with practiced efficiency. Standard Class M planet, General. Single dominant species, approximately 8 billion individuals. Primitive nuclear technology, limited space presence. No orbital defenses detected. Vexstar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Another easy conquest to add to the Empire's ever-growing collection. Military assessment? Fragmented into multiple nation-states, General. They appear to be in a state of constant low-level conflict with each other. No unified planetary government or military command. Their largest nuclear arsenals could theoretically sterilize their own continents, but they lack any means to threaten our fleet. The general nodded. It was always the same story. Young civilizations, barely capable of splitting the atom, convinced of their own importance until the Zephyrian Empire arrived to show them their true place in the cosmic order. Some fought briefly before surrendering. Others submitted immediately upon seeing the overwhelming firepower arrayed against them. A rare few chose total destruction rather than servitude, but even that defiance was quickly snuffed out. Sir? Commander Zethka hesitated, his voice carrying an unusual note of uncertainty. Speak freely, Commander. There's something unusual in their communication networks. They seem to be aware of our presence, but... The younger officer paused, his clawed fingers dancing across the control interface. They're not mobilizing any defense forces. In fact, several of their governments have issued what appear to be formal diplomatic invitations. Vexstar's head crest flared slightly. In his 3 decades of conquest, he had never encountered a species that responded to an invasion fleet with dinner invitations. Elaborate. The main viewscreen shifted to display a series of translated text communications that had been intercepted from Earth's primitive electromagnetic networks. Zethka began reading from the display. This is from their United Nations organization. To our visitors from beyond the stars, we extend our warmest greetings and invite you to formal diplomatic discussions regarding peaceful coexistence and mutual understanding. Peaceful coexistence? Vexstar's laugh was a harsh, guttural sound that echoed across the bridge. Several of the crew members joined in, their mirth filling the chamber. Do they not see our ships? Do they not understand what we represent? There's more, sir. Zethka's expression had grown troubled. Multiple governments are competing to offer hosting rights for these diplomatic discussions. The species they call humans appear to view our arrival as an opportunity rather than a threat. The general's amusement faded. There was something deeply unsettling about prey that didn't recognize a predator. Perhaps they're simply naive. Many primitive species fail to grasp the reality of their situation until it's too late. Perhaps, sir. But their military leaders don't appear naive. Our intelligence suggests they've analyzed our ships extensively. They know they cannot win a conventional engagement. Then, why aren't they surrendering? That's what's unusual, General. They aren't surrendering, but they aren't preparing to fight either. They seem to genuinely believe they can negotiate some sort of partnership. Vexstar turned away from the viewscreen, his mind working through the tactical implications. Throughout the Empire's history of expansion, they had encountered every conceivable response to their arrival. Desperate last stands, immediate capitulation, attempted bargaining, even religious worship. But this casual assumption of equality was entirely new. Sir? Another voice from across the bridge interrupted his thoughts. Navigation Officer Kethmore, a veteran of the Andromedan campaigns, looked up from his station with confusion written across his features. We're receiving multiple communication requests from the planet's surface. Audio or visual? Both, sir. Several different languages, though their translation matrices are surprisingly sophisticated. They're requesting permission to send ambassadors. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's engines. Vexstar had conquered civilizations that begged for mercy, others that threatened mutual destruction, and a few that simply went silent in terror. But, ambassadors? The very concept suggested that these humans believed they had something to negotiate with. Put me through to their primary communication network, Vexstar commanded. All networks, sir? They maintain hundreds of separate channels. All of them. Within moments, the communication array had established contact with Earth's global network infrastructure. Vexstar straightened his imposing frame and activated the visual transmitter, knowing that his appearance alone had been enough to break the spirit of countless species. I am General Vexstar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet, he began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Your world now falls under the dominion of the Zephyrian Empire. You will cease all military activities and prepare for immediate occupation. Resistance will be met with total annihilation. The response came faster than expected, and from multiple sources simultaneously. Dozens of human faces appeared on his communication display, representing various governments and organizations across the planet. What struck him immediately was not fear or desperation in their expressions, but curiosity and what almost looked like excitement. A human female with graying hair and wearing what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire spoke first. General Vexstar, I am Secretary General Martinez of the United Nations. We appreciate your direct communication and would like to propose an alternative arrangement that might better serve both our interests. Alternative arrangement? Vexstar's voice carried dangerous undertones. You misunderstand the situation. This is not a negotiation. Another human, this one a male with military bearing, joined the conversation. General, I'm Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Initiative. We've run extensive simulations based on our observations of your fleet capabilities. You're absolutely right that we cannot match your firepower in direct confrontation. At least they weren't completely delusional. Then, you understand that surrender is your only option. Actually, Admiral Chen continued with remarkable calm, we were hoping you might consider a different approach. Your empire appears to value strength and military prowess. We believe we might be able to offer something more valuable than simple subjugation. And what, Vexstar asked with growing irritation, could a primitive species possibly offer the Zephyrian Empire? Secretary General Martinez smiled, and something in that expression sent an unexpected chill through the general's nervous system. Experience. Explain. General, our species has been at war with itself for our entire recorded history. We've developed strategies, tactics, and technologies specifically designed to fight opponents with superior numbers, superior technology, and superior resources. We've had to, because we've never been the strongest force on our own battlefield. Admiral Chen nodded in agreement. Every weapon system your ships carry, we've already developed countermeasures for similar technology. Every tactical formation you might employ, we've seen variants of in our own conflicts.
What we lack in raw power, we've made up for in adaptability and innovation. Are you threatening us?
Vexstar's voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper.
Not at all, Martinez replied quickly. We're offering our services.
The Zephyrian Empire conquers through overwhelming force, which works perfectly against civilizations that think conventionally.
But, what happens when you encounter a species that doesn't? What happens when you face an enemy that fights dirty, thinks creatively, and refuses to follow the established rules of engagement?
The general felt a strange uneasiness creeping into his thoughts.
The Empire has faced unconventional tactics before. Have you faced an enemy that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare? That's turned survival against impossible odds into a science?
Chen's expression had grown serious.
General, we're not offering to fight you. We're offering to fight for you. Elaborate.
Martinez leaned forward in her chair, her eyes meeting Vexstar's through the viewscreen with unsettling directness.
Keep humanity neutral.
Allow us to maintain our independence as an autonomous region within the Empire. In exchange, when you encounter enemies that can't be conquered through conventional means, you call us.
Preposterous.
The Empire does not negotiate with conquered species. Then, perhaps, Admiral Chen said quietly, the Empire has never encountered a species quite like ours.
Before Vexstar could respond, alerts began flashing across his tactical display. Commander Zethka's voice cut through the tension. Sir! We're detecting massive energy signatures across the planet's surface. They appear to be launching something. The viewscreen split to show radar tracking data alongside the diplomatic communication. Hundreds of small objects were ascending from Earth's surface, moving at tremendous speed toward the Zephyrian fleet. Missiles? Vexstar demanded. Unknown, sir. They're not matching any known weapon signatures. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communications channel with what sounded almost like amusement. Not weapons, General. Gifts.
Within minutes, the objects resolved themselves on the fleet's sensors. They were small craft, unarmed and broadcasting friendship signals in multiple galactic languages. Each one contained detailed technical specifications, cultural information, and what appeared to be recipes.
Recipes? Commander Zethka stared at his display in confusion. Secretary General Martinez nodded.
Food, entertainment, art, literature, music, and scientific data.
Everything we thought you might find interesting about our species.
Including detailed analysis of every major military engagement in our history, with particular focus on how inferior forces defeated superior ones. Vexstar found himself staring at a tactical database that contained thousands of years of human military innovation. Strategies he had never conceived of, technologies adapted from civilian applications, and battle plans that defied every principle of conventional warfare he had ever learned.
You're giving us your military secrets?
We're giving you a sample, Martinez corrected.
Think of it as a demonstration of what human creativity can accomplish when properly motivated.
The full database contains analysis of over 50,000 significant military engagements, detailed psychological profiles of effective leadership under pressure, and theoretical frameworks for combating enemy forces with capabilities far exceeding your own. Admiral Chen added, plus comprehensive guides for maintaining morale during extended campaigns, optimal resource allocation during sieges, and innovative applications of standard technologies in combat situations.
And, you're simply giving this to us? Consider it a job application, Martinez replied.
The Zephyrian Empire is powerful, but even powerful empires eventually encounter problems that can't be solved with brute force. When that happens, you'll need allies who specialize in the impossible. Vexstar stood in stunned silence, his mind reeling from the implications. In 30 years of conquest, no species had ever approached the Empire as potential partners rather than subjects. More disturbing still, the preliminary analysis of the human database was revealing tactical concepts that his own military academies had never considered.
Sir? Commander Zethka's voice was barely above a whisper.
The preliminary scan of their military database, some of these strategies could revolutionize imperial doctrine. The general turned back to the viewscreen, where dozens of human faces waited patiently for his response. These creatures had taken the appearance of his invasion fleet and, somehow, transformed it into a business opportunity. They had faced overwhelming force and responded not with fear or defiance, but with a job offer.
"What guarantee do we have of your loyalty?" he asked finally.
Secretary General Martinez exchanged glances with Admiral Chen before responding.
"General, we're not asking you to trust our loyalty. We're asking you to trust our self-interest. An independent humanity that serves as the Empire's problem-solving specialists is far more valuable than a conquered humanity working in your labor camps."
Besides, Admiral Chen added with a slight smile, enslaved populations rarely produce their best work. Innovation requires freedom to think, to experiment, to fail and try again. You could have 8 billion resentful slaves, or 8 billion motivated partners.
Which would better serve the Empire's long-term interests?
Vexstar realized that everything about this first contact had proceeded exactly opposite to his expectations. He had come to conquer and remained to listen. He had displayed overwhelming force and been met with overwhelming hospitality. Most unsettling of all, he was beginning to suspect that these humans might actually be right about their value to the Empire. "I will need to consult with the Imperial High Command," he said finally.
Of course, Martinez nodded. "Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready to discuss terms."
As the communication ended, Vexstar found himself staring at a planet that had somehow transformed his invasion into a diplomatic negotiation. The tactical database alone contained military innovations that could give the Empire significant advantages in future campaigns. But, more than that, these humans had demonstrated a type of strategic thinking that he had never encountered before. They had taken their greatest weakness and presented it as their greatest strength. They had faced annihilation and somehow turned it into an opportunity for advancement. Most remarkably, they had done it all without firing a single shot. For the first time in his military career, General Vexstar found himself wondering if perhaps the Zephyrian Empire had more to learn than to teach. The Imperial throne chamber stretched beyond the horizon, its crystalline walls reaching heights that disappeared into artificial clouds. At its center, the obsidian throne commanded absolute authority over an empire spanning 3 galaxies. Emperor Zyx Thul, his ancient form wreathed in the ceremonial armor of 1,000 conquered worlds, listened to General Vexstar's report with growing disbelief. "Let me ensure I understand correctly," the Emperor's voice resonated through the vast chamber, each word carrying the weight of absolute power.
"You encountered a primitive species that offered to serve the Empire rather than resist it, and you chose not to conquer them immediately?"
The Imperial Council arrayed themselves in a perfect circle around the throne, their various species representing the diversity of the Empire's conquests. Admiral Catherine of the Void Hunters, her cybernetic implants gleaming against her pale blue skin, leaned forward with obvious skepticism. "General Vexstar, the Zephyrian Empire has maintained its dominance for 3 millennia through consistent application of overwhelming force.
Are you suggesting we abandon proven doctrine for the promises of a pre-spaceflight civilization?"
Vexstar stood at the center of the circle, fully aware that his next words could determine not only the fate of humanity but his own career within the Imperial hierarchy. "Respectfully, Admiral, I'm suggesting that our proven doctrine may not be adequate for the challenges we're beginning to face." A murmur of surprise rippled through the assembled council members. War Marshal Jekthar of the Storm Legion, his massive frame scarred by countless battles, rose from his position with unconcealed anger.
"General, are you questioning the effectiveness of Imperial military strategy? The same strategy that has brought the Empire unbroken victory for 30 centuries?
"I'm questioning whether past success guarantees future victory," Vexstar replied calmly.
"The humans have provided us with historical data that suggests otherwise."
High Counselor Vashti, the ancient strategist whose wisdom had shaped imperial policy for longer than most species had existed, spoke with the measured tone of someone who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations.
"These humans interest me, General. Their approach is novel.
But novelty does not equal effectiveness. With respect, High Counselor, their preliminary tactical database contains strategies that our own military academies have never considered. Concepts that could revolutionize how we approach future conflicts. Emperor Zyxthal's expression remained unreadable beneath his ceremonial mask, but his fingers drummed against the armrest of the obsidian throne with barely contained impatience. General Vextar, the Empire has encountered over 10,000 species during its expansion.
Not one of them has offered us anything of value that we could not simply take by force. What makes these humans different?
Vextar activated his personal holographic display, projecting a three-dimensional tactical simulation into the center of the chamber. Because, Your Imperial Majesty, they specialize in defeating superior forces through unconventional means. The display showed a detailed recreation of a human conflict called World War II, specifically focusing on an engagement the humans termed the Battle of Britain. The Council watched as a smaller, technologically inferior air force systematically defeated a much larger invasion force through innovative tactics, superior intelligence networks, and psychological warfare.
Admiral Catherine studied the simulation with professional interest.
Impressive coordination for a primitive species, but hardly revolutionary.
We've seen defensive actions succeed before.
That's not the remarkable part, Vextar continued, manipulating the display to focus on specific tactical decisions. The remarkable part is how they turned their technological disadvantages into strategic advantages.
Watch this section.
The simulation zoomed in to show human fighters using hit-and-run tactics, attacking from unexpected angles, and coordinating with ground-based systems in ways that maximized their limited resources while minimizing their exposure to enemy strengths. War Marshal Jekthar snorted dismissively.
Clever, perhaps, but ultimately meaningless. Superior numbers and technology always prevail. Do they?
Vextar shifted the display to show another conflict, this one called the Vietnam War. The Council watched as a technologically superior force with overwhelming firepower gradually lost ground to an enemy that refused to engage conventionally.
The humans call this asymmetric warfare, Vextar explained.
The principle is simple: when you cannot match your enemy's strengths, you force them to fight in circumstances where those strengths become weaknesses.
High Counselor Vashti leaned forward with genuine curiosity. Elaborate on this concept, General.
The display shifted to show a series of tactical principles: guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, resource denial, and what the humans termed death by 1,000 cuts. Each concept was illustrated with historical examples from human conflicts spanning thousands of years. Every major human civilization has faced this type of warfare, Vextar continued. They've been forced to develop countermeasures, which led to countermeasures, which led to entirely new forms of conflict. They've spent their entire history preparing to fight opponents who are stronger, faster, and better equipped than they are. Emperor Zyxthal finally spoke, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade.
And you believe this experience would be valuable to the Empire?
Your Imperial Majesty, the Empire's expansion has been so successful that we've never faced a truly determined resistance.
Our enemies either surrender quickly or are crushed before they can adapt. But what happens when we encounter a species that can match our technology? What happens when we face an enemy that refuses to fight conventionally? Admiral Catherine activated her own tactical display, showing the recent Andromedan campaign. General, we've faced unconventional tactics before.
The Void Phantoms of the Spiral Arm attempted similar strategies. They were eliminated within 6 months. The Void Phantoms fought unconventionally because they were desperate, Vextar countered. The humans fight unconventionally because it's their natural state. They'd had 10,000 years to perfect these methods. War Marshal Jekthar stood abruptly, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber floor.
General Vextar, you're suggesting that the Empire's military doctrine, proven through 3 millennia of conquest, is somehow inferior to the amateur theories of a species that hasn't even achieved faster-than-light travel?
I'm suggesting that our military doctrine is perfectly suited for conquering conventional enemies.
But the universe is vast, Marshal. Eventually, we'll encounter enemies that aren't conventional.
High Counselor Vashti spoke thoughtfully, her ancient voice carrying the weight of accumulated wisdom.
The general raises an interesting point.
Our success has perhaps made us predictable. An enemy that could anticipate our tactics might indeed pose a significant threat.
Exactly.
Vexstar expanded his display to show Imperial fleet formations and standard conquest protocols.
Look at our approach.
We always arrive with overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, and crush any resistance through superior firepower. It's efficient, but it's also completely predictable. Emperor Zyxthal studied the tactical displays with increasing interest.
Continue. The humans have already analyzed our fleet compositions, weapon signatures, and standard operating procedures.
They've identified 17 different ways a technologically inferior enemy could inflict significant casualties on our forces before being defeated.
The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Catherine was the first to speak. 17 ways?
That's just the preliminary analysis, Vexstar confirmed. Their complete database contains countermeasures for virtually every standard Imperial tactic. More importantly, it contains strategies for developing new countermeasures against tactics they've never encountered before. War Marshal Jekthar's expression had shifted from anger to troubled concern.
General, are you saying these humans could defeat Imperial forces? In direct confrontation? Absolutely not. But, could they make conquest so costly that it would be strategically inadvisable? Could they inflict enough damage to weaken the Empire for our real enemies? Could they inspire other species to adopt similar resistance strategies?
Vexstar paused to let the questions sink in.
Yes, Marshal. They absolutely could.
High Counselor Vashti activated her own historical database, cross-referencing Imperial conquest records with the tactical principles Vexstar had demonstrated.
Fascinating. General, have you considered how these strategies might be applied to our existing enemies?
That's exactly what the humans are offering, High Counselor. They want to remain neutral and serve as strategic consultants for unconventional warfare scenarios. Emperor Zyxthal rose from the obsidian throne, his imposing figure commanding absolute attention. General Vexstar, you're asking the Empire to abandon 3 millennia of successful conquest doctrine in favor of an untested partnership with a primitive species.
No, Your Imperial Majesty.
I'm asking the Empire to supplement its existing doctrine with capabilities we've never needed before but may desperately need in the future. The Emperor began pacing around the chamber's inner circle, his footsteps echoing off the crystalline walls.
The humans want neutrality. They want independence.
They want to remain outside the Empire's direct control.
Yes, Your Majesty.
And, in exchange, they offer theoretical knowledge about fighting superior enemies.
Theoretical knowledge backed by 10,000 years of practical experience, Your Majesty. Admiral Catherine interjected, Your Imperial Majesty, if we accept this proposal, what message does it send to our existing subjects? What happens when other species demand similar treatment? An excellent question, the Emperor acknowledged. General Vexstar, how do we prevent this arrangement from encouraging rebellion throughout the Empire?
Vexstar had anticipated this concern. By making it clear that humanity's independence is contingent on their continued value to the Empire.
They remain neutral only as long as they provide useful services.
The moment they cease to be beneficial, they become targets for conventional conquest.
And if other species attempt to negotiate similar arrangements? They're free to try, Your Majesty.
But they'd need to offer something the Empire actually values. Most conquered species have nothing unique to contribute. The humans specialize in exactly the type of warfare the Empire has never had to master. War Marshal Jekthar studied the tactical displays with growing understanding. General, these strategies could indeed be valuable against enemies like the Void Syndicate or the Machine Consciousness.
Both have proven resistant to conventional Imperial tactics.
The Machine Consciousness in particular, Vexstar agreed. Their adaptive algorithms make them increasingly difficult to defeat through standard approaches.
Human-style asymmetric warfare might be exactly what we need to break their defensive networks. High Counselor Vashti nodded slowly.
And, the Void Syndicate's hit-and-run tactics have already cost us 3 systems in the Outer Rim. Perhaps it's time to fight fire with fire. Emperor Zyxthal returned to his throne, his expression thoughtful.
General Vexstar, you're convinced that these humans represent a genuine strategic asset rather than a potential threat? Your Imperial Majesty, I believe they represent both. Their capabilities could make them extraordinarily valuable allies or extraordinarily dangerous enemies. The question is which we prefer them to be. Elaborate.
If we conquer them conventionally, we gain 8 billion slaves with no particular skills we haven't already acquired from other species. If we grant them neutrality, we gain access to military innovations that could revolutionize Imperial strategy.
If we ignore them entirely.
Vexstar paused, choosing his words carefully. They remain free to develop those innovations for potential use against us.
Admiral Catherine's cybernetic implants flickered as she processed the implications. General, are you suggesting that humanity could eventually pose a threat to the Empire?
I'm suggesting that a species which has spent its entire history preparing to fight superior enemies might eventually become very good at it.
Better to have them fighting for us than against us. The Emperor considered this for a long moment before speaking. Very well, General Vexstar. You will return to the human homeworld and establish formal diplomatic contact.
Negotiate the terms of their proposed neutrality agreement.
Yes, Your Imperial Majesty.
However, the Emperor's voice carried a warning edge. You will also conduct a thorough assessment of their true capabilities. If these humans prove to be more threat than asset, the Empire will respond accordingly.
Understood, Your Majesty.
War Marshal Jecther stepped forward.
General, what if they're playing a longer game? What if this entire offer is a strategy to buy time for military development?
Then, we'll discover that during our assessment, Marshal. But, consider this, if they were planning to fight us eventually, would it be better to face them now while they're technologically inferior, or later after they've had time to prepare?
High Counselor Vashti spoke one final time. General Vexstar, you're embarking on unprecedented diplomatic territory.
The Empire has never established this type of relationship with any species.
Proceed carefully.
As the council session ended and the various members began filing out of the chamber, Emperor Zyxthal remained seated on the obsidian throne. General Vexstar approached and knelt in formal obeisance. General, the Emperor said quietly, you realize that if this experiment fails, if the humans prove to be deceptive or dangerous, the responsibility will be yours alone.
Yes, Your Imperial Majesty.
But, if it succeeds, if these humans prove as valuable as you believe, you will have potentially changed the entire future of Imperial expansion strategy.
I understand, Your Majesty. Then, go.
And, may the stars guide your judgment. As Vexstar left the throne chamber, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just set in motion events that would ripple through the galaxy for centuries to come. The humans had already demonstrated their ability to turn weakness into strength and problems into opportunities. Now they would have the chance to prove whether that talent extended to transforming the galaxy's most powerful empire into something even more formidable.
The question that haunted him as he prepared to return to Earth was simple: had he just secured the Empire's greatest asset, or unleashed its eventual destroyer?
3 months had passed since the Imperial Council's decision to pursue the unprecedented alliance with humanity. General Vexstar found himself standing in what the humans called the Strategic Operations Center deep beneath the Swiss Alps, a facility that had been hastily expanded to accommodate both human and Zephyrian military personnel. The sight before him defied every expectation he had developed about primitive civilizations. The main operations floor buzzed with activity as dozens of human analysts worked alongside Imperial military advisors, their screens displaying tactical scenarios that spanned multiple star systems. What struck Vexstar most was not the sophistication of their equipment, which remained primitive by Imperial standards, but the sophistication of their thinking. These humans approached warfare like a complex puzzle, finding solutions in places where Imperial doctrine would never think to look. General Admiral Chen approached with a tablet displaying what appeared to be a routine tactical assessment. We've completed our analysis of the Void Syndicate's attack patterns from your most recent engagement in the Kepler sector. Vexstar accepted the device, his scaled fingers awkwardly manipulating the human interface. What he read made him pause.
You're suggesting that the Syndicate's retreat was not a retreat at all?
Correct. Based on our analysis of their movement patterns, resource allocation, and timing, we believe they were deliberately drawing your forces away from the Rigel mining station.
Admiral Chen activated a holographic display that showed the entire engagement from a strategic perspective. The Zephyrian fleet's movements were traced in blue, the Void Syndicate forces in red, and suspected hidden objectives in yellow.
Look at the pattern, Chen continued. They engaged just long enough to ensure your fleet would pursue them along this specific trajectory. Every maneuver they made was designed to pull you further from your original position while giving the appearance of a fighting retreat. Vexstar studied the display with growing concern. To what end? While you were chasing their main force, a secondary fleet was attacking your supply lines 40 light-years behind you. By the time you realized the deception and returned, they had captured enough resources to fund their operations for the next 2 years. The general's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Kepler engagement had been considered a tactical victory. The Void Syndicate forces had fled the field after suffering significant casualties.
But, if the humans were correct, the Empire had been expertly manipulated into achieving the enemy's strategic objectives. How could our intelligence networks miss a secondary fleet of that magnitude?
Vexstar demanded. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the lead human strategist assigned to the project, looked up from her workstation with an expression of polite confusion.
General, with respect, your intelligence networks didn't miss anything. The secondary fleet didn't exist until after the engagement began.
Impossible. Fleet movements of that scale require weeks of preparation. Imperial fleet movements require weeks of preparation, Dr. Martinez corrected gently. The Void Syndicate uses modular ship designs that can be rapidly reconfigured for different mission profiles. What your sensors detected as civilian cargo vessels were actually warship components in transit. She manipulated the holographic display to show the transformation sequence. Here, look at this. 37 merchant vessels converged on these coordinates during your engagement. Within 6 hours, they had assembled themselves into a fully functional battle group capable of taking on your rear guard.
Admiral Chen nodded in agreement.
It's essentially a more advanced version of strategies humans have used for centuries. Disguise your military assets as civilian infrastructure until the moment of attack. Vexstar felt a chill run through his nervous system.
You're saying our enemies are adopting human tactics?
We're saying that effective tactical principles tend to be universal, Dr. Martinez replied. The Void Syndicate has independently developed strategies similar to what humans call guerrilla warfare. The difference is that humans have had thousands of years to perfect countermeasures.
And, what countermeasures do you recommend? Chen and Martinez exchanged glances before the Admiral responded.
That depends on whether you want to win the current war or prevent future wars.
Explain.
Dr. Martinez activated another display showing long-term strategic projections. The Void Syndicate's current approach is sustainable because they can always retreat when faced with superior force. They hit your supply lines, steal what they need, and disappear before your main fleets can respond. To defeat them conclusively, you need to deny them the ability to retreat. Our current doctrine focuses on destroying enemy fleets in direct engagement, Vexstar observed.
Are you suggesting we abandon that approach?
We're suggesting you supplement it, Admiral Chen replied. Direct engagement should remain your primary method for dealing with conventional enemies. But, the Void Syndicate isn't conventional. They're fighting a war of attrition designed to gradually wear down Imperial resources over decades.
Dr. Martinez pulled up historical data on human conflicts. General, has the Empire ever faced an enemy that deliberately avoided decisive battles?
Vexstar considered the question carefully.
No.
Our enemies typically seek decisive engagement because they believe their forces can achieve victory. The Void Syndicate doesn't believe they can achieve victory through decisive engagement. They're trying to make the war so expensive that the Empire will eventually consider them not worth the effort.
The implications hit Vexstar like a physical blow. You're describing a war without end. Unless you change the fundamental parameters, Admiral Chen confirmed. Which brings us to our recommendation. The holographic display shifted to show a three-phase strategic plan that was unlike anything in Imperial military doctrine.
Phase 1 involved establishing what the humans called forward operating bases in contested sectors.
Phase 2 implemented persistent patrol networks designed to deny the enemy freedom of movement. Phase 3 introduced economic warfare targeting the syndicate's resource acquisition capabilities. Economic warfare? Vexstar had never heard the term before.
The Void Syndicate survives by raiding Imperial supply lines and selling stolen resources on black markets, Dr. Martinez explained.
Destroy the black markets and you eliminate their ability to convert theft into operational funding. How do you destroy a black market?
By flooding it with legitimate alternatives that are cheaper and more reliable, Admiral Chen said with a slight smile.
Make it more profitable to trade with the Empire than to trade with thieves.
Vexstar stared at the strategic plan with growing amazement.
You're proposing to defeat an enemy military force through commercial competition?
We're proposing to remove their economic foundation while simultaneously constraining their operational mobility, Dr. Martinez corrected. The military pressure continues, but it's applied systematically rather than reactively.
This is...
Vexstar paused, searching for the right words. This is completely unlike any military strategy I've ever encountered.
That's because it's not purely military, Admiral Chen explained. It's what humans call multi-domain warfare.
You attack the enemy's military capabilities, economic foundation, and strategic mobility simultaneously. Dr. Martinez activated a simulation showing how the strategy would unfold over time.
Phase 1 establishes Imperial presence in sectors the Syndicate uses for staging operations.
They can't raid your supply lines if they can't reach them safely.
Phase 2 creates persistent monitoring networks that track their movements and deny them the element of surprise. Phase 3 eliminates their ability to profit from successful raids.
The beauty of this approach, Admiral Chen added, is that it forces them to either adapt to conventional warfare, where Imperial advantages are overwhelming, or abandon their current operational area entirely.
And if they abandon the area?
Then, you've achieved your strategic objective without the massive resource expenditure required for direct military conquest, Dr. Martinez replied.
Sometimes the best victory is the one where your enemy defeats themselves.
Vexstar found himself reconsidering fundamental assumptions about warfare that had guided his entire career.
Dr. Martinez, in human history, have these strategies proven effective against technologically superior enemies?
General, these strategies have allowed technologically inferior forces to defeat superior enemies so consistently that most human military academies consider asymmetric warfare a separate discipline entirely. The general activated his personal communication device and contacted the Eternal Dominion. Commander Zethka, prepare to implement new operational protocols for the Void Syndicate campaign.
Sir? Are we changing our deployment strategy? We're changing our entire approach to the conflict.
Download the tactical parameters being transmitted from the human facility and begin fleet reorganization immediately. General, these parameters are highly irregular. They're also highly effective, Commander.
Implement them. As the communication ended, Dr. Martinez looked up from her workstation with obvious curiosity. General, you're willing to completely restructure Imperial fleet operations based on human recommendations? Dr. Martinez, 3 months ago I would have considered that question absurd.
But, your species has already provided tactical insights that our military academies never developed despite 3 millennia of warfare. If human strategies can end the Void Syndicate threat with minimal Imperial casualties, then, yes, I'm willing to restructure our operations.
Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. General, there's something else you should know about human military philosophy.
Which is?
We never fight the same war twice. Every conflict teaches us new lessons that get incorporated into future strategies.
The Void Syndicate campaign will be our first opportunity to observe Imperial military capabilities in action. By the time it's over, we'll have developed entirely new approaches to space-based warfare. Vexstar felt a mixture of excitement and unease.
You're saying that human tactical capabilities will continue to evolve? Constantly, Dr. Martinez confirmed. It's how we've survived.
Every new challenge forces us to innovate new solutions. The general spent the next several hours reviewing human strategic concepts that had never occurred to Imperial military theorists.
Psychological warfare designed to undermine enemy morale.
Information warfare aimed at disrupting enemy communications.
Resource denial strategies that made entire sectors uninhabitable for hostile forces. Each concept was supported by historical examples and theoretical frameworks that demonstrated their effectiveness.
General, Admiral Chen interrupted his studies. There's one more thing we should discuss.
Yes?
The Void Syndicate campaign will serve as proof of concept for human-imperial cooperation.
But it's not the only threat the Empire is facing. Dr. Martinez activated a display showing Imperial military reports from the past decade.
According to your intelligence networks, you're also dealing with the machine consciousness in the Andromeda sector, the hive clusters near the Galactic Rim, and something called the Silent Fleet that your reports describe as completely unknown. The Silent Fleet is classified above your security clearance, Vexstar replied automatically.
That's fine, Admiral Chen said with understanding.
But, General, each of these threats represents a different type of warfare that requires different strategic approaches. The machine consciousness uses networked artificial intelligence that adapts to Imperial tactics in real time.
The hive clusters operate through biological collective intelligence that doesn't respond to conventional psychological warfare. And the Silent Fleet. He paused.
Well, fighting an unknown enemy requires the kind of creative thinking humans specialize in. Vexstar realized that the human offer extended far beyond assistance with a single campaign. You're proposing to help the Empire develop strategies for multiple simultaneous conflicts. We're proposing to help the Empire prepare for types of warfare that haven't been invented yet, Dr. Martinez corrected. General, the universe is vast and full of species with capabilities we can't imagine.
The Empire's current doctrine works perfectly for conventional enemies, but what happens when you encounter enemies that aren't conventional?
Such as energy beings that exist partially outside normal spacetime. Collective intelligences that share memories across multiple bodies. Species that manipulate probability rather than physical matter.
Time-traveling civilizations that attack before they're discovered. Admiral Chan's expression grew serious.
General, the universe is stranger than Imperial doctrine assumes. Vexstar felt a profound shift in his understanding of galactic warfare.
And humans have strategies for fighting such enemies?
Humans have strategies for developing strategies to fight enemies we've never encountered before, Dr. Martinez replied.
It's called adaptive methodology. The ability to create new approaches in response to novel challenges.
As the day's briefings concluded, General Vexstar found himself standing on the facility's observation deck, looking out at the human city sprawling below. These creatures had transformed their offer from simple tactical assistance to comprehensive strategic partnership. They were proposing to revolutionize not just how the Empire fought individual battles, but how it approached the fundamental challenge of warfare in an infinite universe. The question that haunted him was whether the Empire was wise enough to accept what humanity was offering, or whether they were too proud to admit they had something to learn from a species that had never left their own solar system. Either way, Vexstar realized that the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency klaxon aboard the Eternal Dominion shrieked through the corridors with an urgency that General Vexstar had not heard in over a decade. He rushed to the command bridge, his ceremonial armor clanking against the metal floor plates as reports flooded in from across the Outer Rim territories. What he found waiting for him defied every tactical assumption he had ever made about warfare in the known galaxy.
Report!
Vexstar commanded as he took his position at the central command station. Commander Zethka, his purple skin pale with stress, turned from the tactical display with an expression of barely controlled panic. General, we've lost contact with the entire 7th Fleet.
All 47 vessels, including the dreadnought Imperial Vengeance. Enemy action? Unknown, sir.
There was no distress signal, no indication of battle, no debris field. They simply vanished. Vexstar studied the tactical display showing the last known positions of the missing fleet. The ships had been conducting routine patrol operations along the Empire's newest frontier, a region of space that sensors indicated was completely empty.
Casualties from the other fleets in the sector?
That's the disturbing part, General.
The 3rd and 9th fleets were operating in adjacent sectors.
They report no enemy contact, no unusual sensor readings, and no indication that anything was wrong until the 7th Fleet failed to report in. The general's mind raced through possible explanations.
Coordinated rebellion by the fleet crews seemed impossible given Imperial loyalty protocols.
Massive mechanical failures across an entire fleet were statistically absurd. Enemy action by an unknown force was the most likely scenario, but who could destroy 47 Imperial vessels without leaving any trace of their presence? Sir, Navigator Officer Kethmore called from his station, "We're receiving a priority communication from Earth."
The humans?
Yes, sir.
Admiral Chen is requesting immediate conference. He says it's regarding the Silent Fleet.
Vexstar felt ice form in his veins. The Silent Fleet was the Empire's most closely guarded secret, known only to the highest levels of Imperial command. For the humans to even know of its existence meant either a catastrophic security breach or something far worse.
Patch him through immediately.
Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main view screen, and Vexstar was struck by the human's expression of grim urgency.
General Vexstar, we need to talk. Now. Admiral, how do you know about the Silent Fleet?
Because they just made contact with us directly. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's engines.
Vexstar stared at the screen in disbelief. Explain.
20 minutes ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected massive gravitational anomalies appearing throughout human-controlled space. No visual contacts, no electromagnetic signatures, but gravitational displacement indicating the presence of objects roughly the size of Imperial dreadnoughts.
Commander Zethka stepped closer to the display. Admiral Chen, are you saying that invisible ships are currently in your solar system?
I'm saying that ships which exist outside normal spacetime are currently observing our planet.
And, General, they're trying to communicate.
Vexstar's mind struggled to process the implications. The Silent Fleet has never attempted communication with any species. Well, they're attempting it now, Chen replied grimly. And their message is specifically about the Empire's recent activities.
What activities? Admiral Chen's expression grew even more serious.
Your partnership with humanity, General.
They're not happy about it.
The pieces began falling into place with terrifying clarity.
The Silent Fleet had been a persistent mystery for the Empire's intelligence services.
Ships that appeared on gravitational sensors but remained invisible to all other forms of detection. Vessels that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime, observing Imperial activities without ever directly interfering. Most disturbing of all, they had demonstrated the ability to make entire fleets simply disappear without explanation.
Admiral Chen, Vexstar said carefully, what exactly did they communicate to you?
They want to meet with both of us, General.
Together.
They say the Empire's new strategic partnership with humanity violates several interstellar agreements that we didn't even know existed.
Interstellar agreements?
Apparently, there's a whole diplomatic framework governing how advanced civilizations interact with developing species. And, according to the Silent Fleet, the Empire's arrangement with humanity breaks most of the established rules.
Commander Zethka interjected, Sir, this could be a trap.
The humans might be collaborating with this Silent Fleet to manipulate Imperial policy.
Admiral Chen's response was sharp. Commander, if we were collaborating with beings capable of making your 7th Fleet vanish without a trace, why would we waste time with tactical consultation? We'd simply destroy your remaining forces directly. Vexstar realized that the human made a valid point. Admiral, what are the terms of this proposed meeting?
Neutral location, minimum security details, and full disclosure of the Empire's long-term intentions regarding humanity and galactic expansion in general. General, Commander Zethka spoke urgently, we should consult with Imperial Command before agreeing to any meeting with unknown entities.
We don't have time for consultation, Admiral Chen interrupted.
The Silent Fleet has given us exactly 6 hours to arrange this meeting. After that, they'll take what they call corrective action to restore proper galactic order.
Vextar understood the implicit threat. And the Seventh Fleet? Still missing, but they've indicated the crews are alive and unharmed.
Apparently, making Imperial fleets disappear is their way of getting our attention. The general made a decision that would either save the Empire or destroy his career.
Admiral Chen, I'll meet with these Silent Fleet representatives. What location do they propose?
The asteroid mining facility at Ceres. It's technically neutral territory, and they can arrive there without entering either Imperial or human-controlled space directly.
Agreed. I'll depart immediately.
As the communication ended, Commander Zethka approached with obvious concern. General, you're risking not just your own life but potentially compromising Imperial security by revealing strategic information to unknown entities. Commander, if these beings can make entire fleets disappear at will, they already know everything about Imperial capabilities they want to know. Our best option is to discover what they want before they decide we're too dangerous to tolerate. The journey to Ceres took 8 hours aboard Vextar's personal transport, accompanied by a minimal security detail as requested. During the flight, he studied every available piece of intelligence about the Silent Fleet, searching for clues about their capabilities and intentions. What he found was a pattern of observation and occasional intervention that stretched back centuries.
The Silent Fleet had been present during the Empire's first contact with dozens of species.
They had observed the conquest of the Andromedan civilization. They had monitored the subjugation of the Void Hunters. In every case, they had remained completely passive, watching as the Empire expanded its territory and influence across the galaxy. But they had also been present during the few occasions when the Empire had encountered species that ultimately proved too dangerous to conquer. The energy beings of the Magellanic Clouds, who could manipulate matter at the subatomic level.
The time-traveling civilization that had somehow erased 3 Imperial fleets from history itself.
In each case, the Silent Fleet had appeared shortly before the Empire's decision to withdraw rather than continue costly conflicts. Vextar began to suspect that the Silent Fleet served as some form of galactic peacekeeping force, intervening only when conflicts threatened to destabilize entire regions of space. If that were true, then, their concern about the Empire's partnership with humanity suggested something far more significant than a simple diplomatic arrangement. Ceres appeared on the viewscreen as a standard asteroid mining facility, unremarkable except for the gravitational anomalies detected throughout the surrounding space. Admiral Chen's transport was already docked when Vextar's ship arrived, and, together they made their way to the facility's main conference chamber.
The Silent Fleet representatives were already waiting.
Vextar had expected some form of advanced technology or exotic appearance, but what he found instead was far more unsettling. The 3 figures seated at the conference table appeared to be perfectly ordinary humanoid beings, distinguished only by their complete lack of distinguishing features. No visible aging, no obvious species characteristics, no technological augmentations. They looked like placeholder representations of intelligent life. General Vextar, the central figure, spoke with a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once.
Admiral Chen. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Who are you? Vextar asked directly. We are observers.
We monitor galactic civilization to ensure that developing species have the opportunity to reach their full potential without interference from more advanced powers.
Admiral Chen leaned forward. You're saying the Empire has been interfering with human development?
Not interfering, the second figure replied.
Accelerating.
The Zephyrian Empire's partnership with humanity represents an unprecedented transfer of advanced military knowledge to a pre-spaceflight civilization.
And this violates, what exactly? Vextar demanded.
The third figure activated a holographic display showing what appeared to be a galactic map marked with thousands of species classifications.
The Galactic Development Accords, established by the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel.
Every advanced civilization agrees to allow younger species to develop naturally, with minimal outside influence. The Empire never agreed to any such accords, Vextar stated flatly. The Empire has followed them implicitly by conquering younger species rather than forming partnerships with them, the first figure explained. Conquest preserves the natural development hierarchy. Partnership creates dangerous precedents. Admiral Chen's expression showed growing understanding. You're saying that by treating humans as equals rather than subjects, the Empire is upsetting the galactic balance of power? Precisely. If humanity gains access to advanced imperial technology while maintaining their independence, they will inevitably use that knowledge to accelerate their own development beyond natural limits. Vexstar felt a chill of realization. And, you believe this would be dangerous? The second figure manipulated the holographic display to show detailed analysis of human psychological and cultural patterns. Admiral Chen, your species demonstrates unprecedented adaptability and innovation when faced with external threats. Combined with advanced technology, these traits could make humanity the dominant force in the galaxy within a few centuries. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Chen asked. It is if it disrupts the development of 10,000 other species, the third figure replied. Galactic civilization functions through careful balance between advanced powers and developing species. Humanity's accelerated development would create a cascade effect, forcing other young civilizations to adapt prematurely or face extinction. Vexstar began to understand the true scope of the situation. You're saying our partnership with humanity could trigger a galactic arms race? We're saying it already has, the first figure confirmed. 17 different species have detected the technological transfers between the Empire and humanity. 6 have begun crash programs to develop similar capabilities. 3 have contacted other advanced civilizations requesting protection. Admiral Chen stared at the display showing the ripple effects of the human-imperial partnership. We never intended to cause galaxy-wide instability. Intentions are irrelevant, the second figure stated. The effect is the same regardless of motivation. Then, what do you propose? Vexstar asked. The third figure leaned forward, and, for the first time, Vexstar detected something like emotion in their neutral features. The partnership between the Zephyrian Empire and humanity must be terminated. Immediately. And, if we refuse? Then, we will be forced to restore galactic balance through more direct methods. The implicit threat hung in the air like a physical presence. Vexstar realized that the Silent Fleet possessed not only the capability to make Imperial fleets disappear, but the authority to enforce galactic law through overwhelming force. There must be an alternative, Admiral Chen said desperately. There is, the first figure replied. But, it will require sacrifices from both sides that you may not be willing to make. Vexstar and Chen exchanged glances before the general responded. We're listening. The silence in the conference chamber stretched for what felt like an eternity before the first Silent Fleet representative spoke again. The alternative requires both the Zephyrian Empire and humanity to accept limitations that will fundamentally alter your relationship. General Vexstar studied the neutral features of the beings across from him, searching for any hint of their true intentions. What limitations? The Empire must cease all direct military cooperation with humanity. No technology transfers, no tactical consultation, no joint operations against Imperial enemies. Admiral Chen's face darkened. That's not an alternative, that's complete termination of our agreement. In its current form, yes, the second figure acknowledged. But, the underlying partnership can continue under different parameters. Explain, Vexstar demanded. The third figure activated a new holographic display showing a complex diplomatic framework. Humanity will be granted full independence and territorial sovereignty over their solar system. The Empire will recognize human space as completely neutral territory, protected under galactic law. Protected by whom? Vexstar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. By us, the first figure confirmed. The Silent Fleet will guarantee human neutrality against all external threats, including the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Chen leaned back in his chair, processing the implications. You're offering to make humanity untouchable in exchange for ending our military partnership with the Empire. Not untouchable. Protected. there is a significant difference. Which is? The second figure manipulated the display to show boundaries around human space. Humanity will be free to develop their own technology, form their own alliances, and pursue their own interests within their designated territory. However, they will be prohibited from sharing advanced military technologies with any other species. Vexstar felt the first stirrings of understanding. You're creating a buffer zone around humanity. We're creating a controlled environment where humanity can develop naturally without disrupting galactic stability, the third figure corrected. Within human space, they are completely sovereign. Outside human space, they are bound by the same development accords as every other young civilization. And the Empire? Vexstar asked. The Empire will continue its expansion and conquest as before, with one exception. Human space remains permanently off-limits. Any attempt to violate human neutrality will result in direct intervention by the Silent Fleet. Admiral Chen studied the proposed boundaries with professional interest. This neutral zone includes more than just our solar system. 47 star systems, the first figure confirmed. Sufficient territory for several centuries of human expansion and development. Why so generous? The second figure's expression remained neutral, but something in their tone suggested deep consideration. Because human development patterns suggest your species will not remain contained within a single system for long. Better to provide adequate space for natural expansion than to create conditions that encourage treaty violations. Vexstar realized the true sophistication of what was being proposed. You're giving humanity room to grow while ensuring they can't threaten galactic stability. Precisely. And, General, the Empire benefits as well. How? The third figure activated another display showing Imperial expansion patterns. The Empire's current rate of conquest has created an administrative burden that is becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Maintaining control over thousands of subject species requires enormous resources. The Empire has managed expansion successfully for millennia, Vexstar pointed out. But, not efficiently, the first figure replied. Your military forces are spread across 3 galaxies, dealing with constant rebellions, resource disputes, and territorial conflicts. The human partnership was valuable precisely because it offered solutions to these management problems. Admiral Chen looked up sharply. You're saying the Empire can keep the benefits of our strategic consultation without direct military cooperation? Explain, Vexstar demanded again. The second figure smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Cultural exchange. Academic cooperation. Economic partnership. All of these remain permissible under galactic law. But, not military technology transfer, Chen observed. Correct. But, consider this, Admiral. Many of the most effective human strategies we've observed don't require advanced technology. They require advanced thinking. Vexstar began to see the elegant solution being proposed. You're suggesting that human strategic concepts could be shared through educational and cultural programs rather than direct military consultation. Human universities could offer courses in theoretical warfare studies to students from across the galaxy, the third figure confirmed. Human think tanks could publish papers on hypothetical conflict resolution scenarios. Human entertainment media could depict fictional military strategies that happen to be highly instructive. Admiral Chen laughed despite the tension in the room. You're proposing that we teach the galaxy human military doctrine through academic papers and science fiction novels? We're proposing that you share human intellectual innovations through means that don't violate galactic development protocols, the first figure corrected. The knowledge transfer continues, but through channels that don't directly militarize younger civilizations. And the Empire benefits because? The second figure expanded the display to show the broader implications. Because every species in the galaxy would have access to human strategic innovations, not just the Empire. This prevents the kind of power imbalance that threatens galactic stability. Vexstar studied the proposal with growing appreciation for its complexity. You're democratizing human military knowledge while preserving human independence. We're creating a framework where humanity's unique capabilities benefit galactic civilization without disrupting the natural order of development, the third figure confirmed. But, there are costs, Admiral Chen observed. Humanity loses access to imperial technology that could accelerate our own development. True. But, humanity gains something potentially more valuable. Which is? The first figure leaned forward. Time. Protected space. And, the guarantee that you'll be free to develop your own technologies without external pressure. Admiral, the second figure added, your species has demonstrated remarkable innovation when faced with limitations. Imagine what humanity might accomplish with several centuries of uninterrupted development time. Vexstar realized that the Silent Fleet had essentially offered humanity the ultimate gift, the opportunity to reach their full potential without interference from any advanced civilization, including the Empire. There's one more consideration, the third figure said quietly. The current partnership between humanity and the Empire creates mutual dependency. The Empire becomes reliant on human strategic innovation, while humanity becomes reliant on imperial technology. This dependency makes both civilizations weaker in the long term. How? Vexstar asked. General, what happens to imperial military effectiveness if humanity decides to end the partnership? Admiral, what happens to human development if the Empire decides to conquer your species after all? The mutual vulnerability was obvious once stated explicitly. Both civilizations had made themselves dependent on a relationship that could be terminated at any time by either side. The neutrality arrangement eliminates this vulnerability, the first figure continued. Humanity develops independently, ensuring their innovations remain authentically human. The Empire maintains its military traditions while gaining access to human knowledge through legitimate channels. Admiral Chen turned to Vexstar. General, what do you think? Vexstar considered everything he had learned about humanity over the past months. Their creativity, their adaptability, their uncanny ability to find strength in apparent weakness. Given several centuries of protected development time, what might they accomplish? I think, he said slowly, that a truly independent humanity might be far more valuable to the galaxy than humanity as an imperial client species. Even if it means the Empire loses direct access to human military consultation? Chen asked. Admiral, your species has already demonstrated that they can transform any limitation into an advantage. If you're restricted to sharing knowledge through cultural and academic channels, you'll probably find ways to make those channels more effective than direct military cooperation ever could have been. The Silent Fleet representatives exchanged glances before the second figure spoke. Both parties accept the proposed arrangement? I'll need to consult with Imperial Command, Vexstar replied. And, I'll need to discuss this with human leadership, Chen added. You have 72 hours, the third figure stated. After that period, the current situation becomes unsustainable, and we will be forced to implement more direct solutions. As the meeting concluded and both sides prepared to depart, Admiral Chen approached Vexstar privately. General, do you really think this arrangement is better than what we had? Vexstar looked out at the stars visible through the station's observation windows. Admiral, I think your species is destined for something far greater than serving as strategic consultants to any empire, even one as powerful as ours. But, we'll lose the opportunity to learn from imperial technology. You'll gain the opportunity to develop technologies that make imperial capabilities obsolete, Vexstar replied. And, when that happens, the galaxy will be a far more interesting place. The return journey to Imperial space gave Vexstar time to prepare his presentation to the High Command. He knew that selling this arrangement would require every diplomatic skill he possessed. The Empire would be giving up direct access to humanity's most valuable capabilities in exchange for abstract promises about cultural exchange and long-term galactic stability. But, as he reviewed the tactical innovations humanity had already provided, he realized something crucial. The real value had never been in specific technologies or strategies. The real value had been in learning to think differently about problems that seemed impossible to solve. And that knowledge, once acquired, could never be taken away. 3 days later, General Vexstar stood before the Imperial Council once again, this time delivering a recommendation that would reshape the Empire's entire approach to galactic relations. The humans had taught them that sometimes the greatest victories came not from conquering your enemies, but from turning them into allies who chose to help you succeed. Your Imperial Majesty, he concluded his presentation, I believe the neutrality arrangement represents the best possible outcome for all parties involved.
Emperor Zyxthal considered the proposal for long minutes before responding.
General Vexstar, you're asking the Empire to voluntarily limit its own expansion in order to preserve the independence of a species that could become our most dangerous rival.
No, Your Majesty.
I'm asking the Empire to invest in a relationship that will make us stronger while ensuring galactic stability for millennia to come. The Emperor's decision would determine not only the fate of humanity, but the future of civilization throughout the galaxy. And, somewhere in the space between stars, the Silent Fleet waited to see whether wisdom or pride would shape the destiny of two species whose partnership had already changed the universe forever. 6 months later, the Terran Neutrality Accords were signed in a ceremony broadcast across 3 galaxies. Humanity gained independence and protection. The Empire gained access to the most innovative strategic thinking in galactic history. And the Silent Fleet faded back into the void, their mission completed. But General Vexstar knew that the real story was just beginning. Because in giving humanity the freedom to develop their own path, the galaxy had gained something unprecedented, a species that would never stop finding new ways to turn the impossible into the inevitable. And that, he realized, was exactly what the universe needed.